Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm Zach,
And it's your boy DC.
and we got Nick Hayes in the house. What up, dude?
Hey
Hey,
guys, thanks for having me.
hell yeah, man. How you doing?
Doing good. Just another day in quarantine, right?
Oh yeah, living the dream, dude.
Me in here.
So on this podcast, we talk to a bunch of different artists, producers, and industry professionals, and we're super excited to have you on today. And the first question we always ask is, who are you? How did you get into music, and how did you get to where you are today?
All right. Well, I guess I answered from this point. So what got me into music? Oh, who am I? I guess I'm Nick Hayes. I go by the stage name Nick Hayes. So you can't forget that, I guess. Yeah, but I guess originally I didn't used to like dance music. I was super into like classical music and soundtracks. Yeah, I really didn't like pop music either, but I don't know. My friend, his name was Matt Smelt in high school. He always drove me to school every day. He was always the guy to like find new music, and he found this guy called Avicii. And well, this was back before whatever Shazam, so you couldn't actually see it wasn't an Avicii song, but it's back in the day where like anything that had a piano in it, people were just like Avicii. But I'm pretty sure it was like an Impeto track. Um, but yeah, we listened to that track every day on the way to school. And one day he was like, all right, we got to listen to something else. Like, I can't listen to this song again because it was like a month of that. So he played this song called Levels. And yeah, I guess that's the song that really got me into dance music. Like, that became like the song like that I really liked. And it was cool that we liked it kind of before it became like the big fad and Flow Rider put his staple on it. But yeah, I guess that's kind of how I got introduced to dance music in the short version.
That's
What
awesome, man.
was there something going on in your life at that time that made that song resonate with you?
I don't know. I feel like, high school for me, like, I know a lot of people feel differently or whatever, but like at that point in my life, like I guess I was just on swim team. So just like driving to practice every day at like 4 a.m. And there's not like really anything to get you going because I was never like, woohoo, I get to jump in the pool. It's like 4 a.m. in the morning. Like that's the last thing you want to do. But I guess just being around the people and like hearing kind of like the early like progressive tracks like like Alesso stuff like and then you had like Years and kind of like Ivan Go, like all those kind of guys, like Avicii. Everything was just kind of like super happy, so it was always just like fun music to like listen to and like do whatever in the locker room or on the way to meets and stuff. Just kind of got everybody pumped up, and I guess that's always kind of been like a it's just a happy kind of feeling I got when I was listening to it. I guess as things kind of progressed, got into more, I don't want to say like mature, not that that stuff wasn't mature, but expanded the horizons more into different genres that I never really, even knew existed at that time. But I guess that was also the time when music was kind of new like that in the US anyways. So kind of fell into it.
And you do progressive house. Did you start out doing progressive house, or did you kind of experiment in other types of genres?
Yeah, I guess like before I made like progressive house, I just did kind of like your EDM top 40, like Nicky Romero, Stadium X type, you know, four chords, like
Some big room
pop.
house type stuff.
Yeah. And I really like that. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I didn't love Animals when it came out, or like Sandro Silva Epic. Like I kind of tried to do that like whole big room thing, but that was back when I had no idea how to do producing. I just like looked for the kicks online, and your kick doesn't sound like those fat like big room bass like kicks. So I was just like, it was a lost cause. So progressive was easier for me to make, having had a background in piano. So I just usually wrote stuff on the piano, and it kind of translated really nicely into like the quick melodies, which is a lot of progressive house. So
Yeah.
You,
So
you actually play the piano?
yeah, you know, played.
Right.
But when I was younger, my parents like put me in piano lessons and stuff, probably for, I don't know, 8 years or something like that. But I never really learned how to read music. I just always enjoyed like hearing things, and I just was able to kind of play them on the piano. So whenever my piano teacher would give me like, you know, come back on Monday and be able to play the Indiana Jones theme, I would just like listen to the Indiana Jones theme and like kind of play like my rendition of it, you know, or something that might have been, you know, whatever, pretty close to it. And, you know, you get through it and it sounds good, but then they're like, well, that's the theme. Yeah. But that's not really like what the notes on the page really said. So I don't know. It's cool. I can like hear things and kind of like hit the notes and be able to play them in a decently short amount of time. But yeah, I have no idea how to read music anymore. Like they tried and failed with me on that one. So,
So I wanted to expand on that a little bit because when I went to your house one time, you were showing me kind of how you created some of your songs. And I don't know if you want me to like say this, but like, could you go a little bit in depth of how you create your melodies and kind of create that structure?
yeah, I mean, so I think for like, I guess for structure, first of all, a lot of like newer producers, when they first start, you know, everybody's like, I'm going to reinvent the wheel. I'm going to do this. And I think, you know, this might be a little bit off tangent, but I still think it's important to say, like, you should have a reference track or some sort of idea on the structure of what you're going to do. And that shouldn't just be in your head, you know, especially if you're making like dance music for the club or even for the radio. Like people expect a certain structure, and there's a reason those structures get used and used and used in the clubs. It's, you know, they work. And, you know, people that are fortunate enough to be able to DJ, you know, you see that, oh, okay, like if I have a break that's 4 minutes long, that's not going to work in the club. So that makes sense why club breaks are like a minute or 30 seconds, or maybe there's something that's not even a break, you know? But since I've started, one of the big things for me was like, you always got to have a reference track. And so, you know, just to even get the thing started, like, you know where the hats go, and you don't have to follow it exactly, but, you know, there's a reason those tracks are getting signed. So to have a reference track, that's kind of where I start. Like I usually get like a playlist of, you know, maybe 10 or so songs, or, you know, artists that I like or that have the vibe of the you know, vision that I want to create or whatever. And yeah, you kind of go from there. At least you have a structure down. But as far as like melodies going, I guess like what I do, and for a lot of like progressive stuff, it's just a lot of like plucky stuff. And I think that's kind of like, at first people like joked about, you know, I'm like the pluck guy. But I guess that's kind of become like a thing. Like people are like, oh, like Nick's the pluck guy. Like a lot of my songs have like plucks in them, and it's like, it's very like, you know, short.
There's nothing wrong with that though. It kind of helps build a signature. So I like that actually.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess kind of accidentally, you know, or however you stumbled into like, that's the sound that I make. But for me, having a little bit of music background, but also, you know, when it comes to the writing anyways, I always start with like a piano, or I pull up like a pluck that I really like. I just have like a couple go-to like writing plucks just for workflow. But yeah, basically when I start an idea, I just kind of like, it depends on, sometimes you know exactly what you want to do, but when I get stuck, what I like to do is I just, you know, throw like a reverb on a piano note, or on this delay, or I'm sorry, like a reverb and a delay on a piano or a synth pluck or whatever. And I'll just kind of like hit the keys. And, you know, when you do that, because of the delay and the reverb, you're going to hear like plucks and, or I guess plucks, but you're going to hear like sounds in a different way or a different cadence that you may have never planned to do. And I think that for me is like one of my favorite things, is just to kind of stumble on these ideas and then kind of run with it from there. But, you know, if you're just kind of doing like this and there's a delay, like there's no way you were going to think of that eighth note delay or whatever when you're actually writing. I mean, at least not me. I mean, there's some pretty talented people, but yeah, and that's worked pretty well for me in the past. So sometimes you have an idea, but sometimes you don't, you know.
Do you think you start off with the piano and that kind of vibe because of your like classical background, and that's the kind of music you gravitated to in the beginning?
Yeah, maybe to some extent. I think that's definitely fair to say. I mean, usually when I'm writing more like emotional like pieces, definitely I mean the song, like any good dance track should be able to, if you want to have emotion, you should be able to translate that to a piano or a different instrument, you know, like it's cool to have like cool super saws and whatever, but like at the bare minimum, what I think a lot of people forget, especially now with like this race to be like, you know, not to like throw shade at the techno folks, or, you know, they were doing this a long time before I was, but like, or like the dubstep, like for me, it's like you need a melody. And I think that's what, you know, the sound design, like, I'm like, cool, you know, sound design is great. You know, there's, as a producer, things stick out to me or things don't stick out to me, but like the everyday person, they're not going to remember how you EQ'd that bass line 5 years ago. I mean, just look at like Swedish House Mafia or the tracks that got signed in like 2010, 2011. Like that's the stuff we make now when we're starting out with presets. And it's like, people didn't care then, you know. Those songs like Years or, you know, any Avicii track or, you know, whatever, you listen back and you're like, that would not get signed today.
So sorry, we got kicked off the Wi-Fi. So we're starting up again. But we're talking about like people, you know, remembering melodies more than like the sound design and how things sound. And like that was super big with like Porter Robinson. Like back in the day, like his stuff didn't sound the best. Like he had some cool sound design, but like mixing wise, it wasn't up to par as some other songs, but the melodies really stuck with people. And I think that's what really pushed his career forward.
Yeah, wouldn't argue with that.
Yeah.
But I know one of the questions too was like, is there a reason you like writing with the piano? I think I kind of might have tangented off a little bit, but I guess going back to the actual question, like for me, just having the background with the piano, I kind of know what like the notes should sound like. A lot of times when you're using different synths, you know, there might be like detune that gets added. So, you know, for a lot of the people that are beginning producers, like, or they don't have much music theory, like, you know, you can tell, but then sometimes you think you're in the certain key and, you know, say you think you're in, you know, F major or F minor or whatever. And that's just, you know, you're playing on the keyboard, you might be playing in like the F key, but because of the detune or whatever, you're really playing a different like note. And I think that really throws off when it comes down to like, you know, mixing your low end and, or, you know, it might not even be your low end, but like, you'll be like, why is like, you know, if you catch it, great, but sometimes you don't. Like even I'll like be, you know, messing with presets sometimes, be like, what is going on here? Like, and you realize that like, oh, there's like detune on this, so it's, you know, it sounds totally like a different note. So I guess it's easy to just write with the sound that you know, or like a pluck that you trust, and you know what it should sound like, or you know that it's a actual key or a note, you know.
I think that's a good pro tip. I think that's a good tip that all producers should think about. You know what I mean? Like you don't want to just start with really cool sound, as cool as it may be, and then now you're trying to structure off of that sound and you're wondering why things don't quite sound right. Especially if you're one of those producers that might take samples from a lot of different places, and then when you throw that sample in, you're like, why isn't this like, why is it not fitting? You know what I mean?
Happens to everyone, but yeah, I mean, you know, the more you do it, the, you know, you get used to, you can start throwing stuff in. But like when you're starting a project, the last thing you want to do is really, you know, be trying to figure out what key your thing, you know, your song actually is, or your note is actually playing. Like, I guess that's a workflow thing too, but yeah.
Oh yeah, dude. I also wanted to go a little bit more deep into when I came over, because you showed me that you structured a song off of like a certain vocal. Could you go into that a little bit and kind of like your process on that? I think it was Metrolink, but it was a certain vocal from a different song, and you're kind of explaining how, I created the song around the vocal. and then how you could, you know, use it as like a performance piece also for like live sets.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think well, it might have been Sounder, but I think the original version of that song, for me, so the two kind of ways I write usually is like the delay pluck method, just if I'm trying to get an idea out, or the other way, there's a couple, but another way that I like to do is I just throw like a acapella, like you're saying, that's in the same key of your track, or like a fifth or something like that. And especially if you're going to have a vocal, like, you know, almost using it as a temp vocal, you could say, if you plan on having a vocalist. But also what that helps you with, whether you realize it or not, is the structure, which is important because, like, you know, you'll get these songs that are very short or you know, very long with the acapella. That kind of helps you fit in what your break should be. For example, like if you have a acapella that's 30 seconds, then that's going to keep you contained to writing a break that's maybe 30 seconds or 45 or a minute. You're not going to end up with a 5-minute break because you're going to realize with a vocal on top of it, oh wait, like this whole hook thing was able to happen in this amount of time. Then I have like 30 seconds, and what's that doing for the viewer or the listener? And I think that helps you. And then, and kind of for a performance thing, it's like, if you want to do like live mashups or something, like you have a song that, you know, fits a generic, you know, EDM, you know, acapella in this key, you could throw that on there any day, and people are, you know, people can buy your music too, and they're gonna be like, oh wow, like that's cool. But like the thing that like the true fans like freak out about is like when you have like edits of things or bootlegs or mashups. Like that's the stuff that like is truly yours. Like any DJ could buy your music, you know, but or even put like a vocal on it, you know, but it kind of just makes it more unique or something that like, and you have the file. So if it doesn't fit perfectly, like go back into the project file and take out the white noise that no other mashup DJ is going to be able to, you know, fix. And then you have a special thing that's cool to your set. You know, I think a lot of people do that, but like Tin Liquor and like, with Spencer Brown, like a lot of those people have like so many IDs that you're like, wow, what, you know, you can only hear it at their show. And that just kind of is the thing that sets you apart in a world that's already very, you know, everyone's trying to get everywhere. So
yeah, that's another cool tip, man. And that was the first time when I came over, that was the first time I saw someone do that. And I was like, it's like a whole new perspective on like writing music. Is it wasn't in the genre of, you know, like EDM and, you know, specifically progressive house. It was a song that was like an old, like kind of pop song. And it's like, oh, this still works though, especially when you play it in the song, and that makes it super unique.
And nobody has to know. So, you know, you just, it's little things you can keep to yourself, and it'll make you a better producer or whatever. And yeah.
Hell yeah, man.
So can we dive into even deeper than that? What DAW, like what program do you use?
So I'm in Logic. So I use Logic
Pro.
Pro.
Hey, we got it. We
got a Logic
finally.
person.
Man, there aren't very many, and there's been a lot of things that you know, make me very mad. And I look at the people using Ableton, and it seems easy, but you know, there's always like it's not the kitchen, it's the cook that's in the kitchen that's actually, you know, doing the thing. So there's things that are clean, there's things that are better. I think Ableton has better samplers, but for the people considering Logic, the new sampler that they came out with is very similar to the Ableton one. So I'm not gonna fight it, and I'm not an audio purist to be like, well, the audio sounds better when it's bounced in Logic. Like, man, I don't know. Like, sure, great, but if you're arguing about that stuff, the pros don't argue about that stuff. That's like the angry bedroom DJ who's really not actually that good at producing, and no one's signing his stuff, so he blames his software, and it sometimes isn't the software.
So let's talk a little bit more about Logic Pro X, because I don't have it. I think DC has it, but I watched a couple like video reviews on it. I just want to get your opinion and DC's opinion on just the new features in general and what you think about it.
Well, I think Nick he expounded on it a little bit about just the new version. It really just took the best of a lot of worlds, whether it be FL Studio, Ableton, whatever other program you use. It just kind of took so many different ideas from those people and then just put it all in one. And it makes it way more complete. It's an Apple product, so it runs seamlessly with your hardware. I like it. I mean, there's a lot of things on there that I was kind of wishing it had a while ago, and you just kind of learn your workarounds.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. But once you learn your workarounds, it's like, you know, it is what it is. But they've definitely stepped it up. I mean, Nick, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much going off what you're saying, I think whatever DAW you end up using and you get comfortable with it, that's where you're going to be able to have that space where you're creative. And, yeah, there are definitely clunky workarounds. There are definitely glitches. Like, I'm not going to sit here and preach that it's, the best thing ever, but, I've never really I've like kind of used all of them, all of the DAWs just kind of in and out. But, I know how to do Logic at this point. So I don't really want to have to learn other things. But I guess the only thing that worries me sometimes, and then this just might be kind of stupid, but you are kind of attached to by a string to Apple, like whatever they decide to do, or, say they decide to make Logic Pro 11, whatever it is, but it's only available on X, Y, and Z new Macs. And then, all the companies are going to go over and switch to, the XY, the newest Logic. You might get stuck with an older version for a while until you decide to buy the $5,000 laptop. So
you're
that's
almost saying like they're going to force you to, buy newer products anyway. That's kind of like their business model in a way.
That is their business, planned obsolescence, I think is what it's called. But, it is what it is. And there's a lot of people I still know that are very good producers that still use Logic 9, so
wow.
There's no rule that says that you have to be like, you could be that angry old guy that sticks it out and uses the old thing, but you don't have, and I would also caution you not to be the first person to download that new update. Like, it's cool that you get like, what's her name? Billie Eilish's new song or whatever. Like, that's cool. Like, but don't be the first one to download it, because a lot of the times your third-party plugins and stuff, they don't always make the jump that quick, and you're going to end up with holes in your project. So, pump the brakes. The samplers are cool. I haven't used it myself. I'm still in the old version, but on buddies' computers and watched videos, I'm like, wow, this is going to be game changer. When I finish these couple songs I'm working on, then I'll kind of move over into that new version, I think, because it's been a while. I'm still on the super old OS anyway. So,
well, do you mix in Logic as well? Like, you mix all your production and get everything like ready to go all in Logic, or?
Yeah. So I know a lot of people, I know some people they like to produce in Ableton and then go over to Logic and mix it, or vice versa. For me, I do everything kind of in-house. I don't have a third party program that I use. I mean, when it gets time to the end of the record or whatever, if like a label's interested in it, it's a big label. Like, I don't think there's any harm in sending the song off to somebody who knows what they're doing. Like, you could pretend compression all day, or you could pretend how to do this. But like, for me, I've been fortunate enough to have like a network of people that I've met over the years, and we all kind of give each other feedback and help each other out. So sometimes I'll send like a stem over to somebody, or pay a buddy to do like a final master or something like that. And some people get angry about that, but then they turn around and listen to their favorite artist who really has 6 people writing on the song and 10 different producers. So
I think
we're all out here. So
yeah, that's like something pretty big in like the EDM side of things. I'm not sure if it's the same in like urban music, DC, but like with EDM stuff, people get very like picky on like, oh, you have to produce all the sounds and you have to, create the whole song, have it mixed by yourself and master it by yourself. And it's very, very like personal in that way. But I think it's great to have an extra set of ears on it, because after you listen to a song for so long, you kind of become biased in a way. So I think that's great, man,
For sure.
that you allow other people to take a listen to it and give adjustments on that.
I mean, obviously people you trust, and it's at the end of the day, it's your song, so you don't have to listen to the advice. But when you start getting up there, you know, the label A&Rs, they have the final say. So if you really want that label or whatever, you're gonna have to make some things. I mean, it's a business, and that's just kind of how it is. At the end of the day, you could release all your stuff all day on, you know, different. Not that like Bandcamp is smaller, for example, but like, you know, if your goal is to be played by these bigger producers or these get on these labels, you know, there's a reason they're good, and you kind of gotta somewhat fit into that sound, I think, to an extent.
So how do you feel when you like produce a song that you really love and you are trying to get it into a label and they kind of want to change it up a bit? Like, how do you work with that?
Well, I'm kind of in the process of a few like that at the moment. You know, it's hard. I think for sure, you know, you get attached to the song. Like, you're the one who hears it for 48 hours a day, you know? And
it's your baby, really.
Yeah. And I still think that, you know, it's easy to say, step back and let people do what they want, and let people give feedback. Cause they're, you know, these people are bigger than you. Are they better than you sometimes? Maybe not necessarily. Maybe they have a different taste, but like, music is a very subjective thing. And if your goal, I guess you have to weigh what you really want out of the track. So say you want to release on a very big label, well, you're probably going to have to, you know, you're probably a nobody producer, and you're going to have to kind of do what they, you know, fit their sound until you really prove yourself. And you proving yourself is not, look at, I have 6 songs on this, you know, DistroKid that I sell myself, or on Bandcamp, or here's my free download on SoundCloud. You're going to, you know, you get like the street cred from bigger releases and whatever. So, you know, weigh it. And nobody says you have to sign with those labels, or those artists, or remix that person or whatever. But like, you know, I think you should at some point creatively be able to take a step back. And unfortunately, you know, if you want to do this and be, you know, make money in it, or get some sort of, you know, somewhere with, you know, getting popular. I don't know like the way to say it, but you got to be able to take a step back from it creatively and see like, okay, why isn't this working? The song is good. You could have the best produced song that's 10 minutes long, but nobody's going to play it in the club, and nobody's going to sign it, because they make money when people play it in the club, or people buy it to play it in the club. So, you know,
I think a lot of those changes that they will make to whatever song or project people work on, producers, are monetary changes. They know like, hey, this is who we're going to market to. These are the radio stations. These are the clubs that we're going to market to. These are the playlists that we want it to be on. And for all of that to make sense, they're like, okay, we're going to have to change this, that, and the third, so that this record fits into that pocket.
Yeah,
for sure. I mean, I've been trying to get on certain labels for a while now, and you know, you go back and forth with the A&Rs on changes, you know, 7 or 8 times, and sometimes you end up with a track that might not be exactly what you wanted when you started. But if you're able to step back and be like, well, what's my goal here? You know, to keep always releasing on this label, or to get that goal to open more doors to, you know, release on this label or that label, or remix this person. So, you know, it's very subjective, and it's hard. It's not easy. But I think, you know, if you really want to make it, you know, per se, you know, you have to kind of weigh your options. So,
and then I think that forces you to really revisit your why too. You know what I mean?
Exactly. For sure. Yeah.
If you don't have a solid why, I mean, a lot of people can take the situation of people wanting to change your stuff, and they'll lose it and freak out and be like, no, I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
Been there. Yeah. I think everybody really is. And, you know, especially if you're working with other people, you need to be, you know, it's a collaboration, you know, you just like anything else, you're going to have to make, you know, exceptions sometimes. You're going to have to change things you don't want to change, but sometimes, there's songs that I've signed that in the end they end up being better because of changes. I mean, like one of my songs, like Metrolink, I think the first version of it was like 7 minutes and 45 seconds, and they were like, nah, this is not gonna, like, this is too long. So in the end, half the label was saying do this, the other half was saying do that, and kind of while they were fighting, I ended up with a version that's 5 minutes and 14 seconds, and that structure I know works. The song did well, and whether I like it or not, I think a lot of my songs kind of end up fitting into that structure as well in the long term. So it's not always bad is what I'm saying.
Right. Hey, let me ask you this question real quick, because you speak a lot about labels and A&Rs, and do you, I mean, maybe you do, maybe you don't. Is it important for, EDM producers or any genre, just producers in general, to go the label route, or do you think that they can go the independent route as well?
So, I can't speak on having done the independent route before. I either release it to a label or it doesn't get released, and it's just something that sits on a hard drive, and maybe I'll revisit some other time. And I have a few songs like that now. I've gone back during quarantine and changed, and you never know what's going to happen with them. But here's my thing. I mean, if you look at the numbers, there's a lot of music that comes out every day, every hour even. And labels are kind of, whether you like it or not, they're kind of like the first door of saying like, hey, look, this is what's popular, or this is what we're promoting. Obviously you have radio stations and bigger DJs and like Spotify playlists and stuff like that. I think as an independent artist, you can do well on Spotify. You can get 100,000 plays, but nobody's buying music anymore regardless. So, I mean, they do, but looking at the numbers, it's like that, everybody's streaming now. So to get on a Spotify playlist, like a big playlist that it does well for you, you make the money, but big DJs aren't necessarily looking on Spotify to say like, oh, look, like, whatever, this song is getting hundreds of thousands of plays. Like, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But I think the important thing to come out of this is that, I mean, it's a toss-up. It really is. But from my background, the labels help you push. And if they don't, you should probably find another label, because there's a lot of labels that will sign anything. Like they were going to sign, this label was going to sign the hunk of crap that was the original version of my song that ended up doing the best. And, the label comes in and they're going to have feedback. They have connections. They have other people. That's not to say it can't be done. I mean, you look at like, was it Old Town Road, and that beat was bought for like $20 or something. I'm not very into that world, so I don't necessarily understand how sometimes things happen. You could argue on both sides. Well, this happened, or well, this happened. But like the reality of it is, I think a label would help you in the long term. Make sure you're with the right label. That's like my biggest caveat, because there's too many that'll just take your money and never even pay you. So not that you do it for money, but you don't do it to make other people money only.
So that's like one of the big red flags when like looking out for labels. What are some like other red flags to look out for labels, and some good things to look out when you're trying to choose a label?
Yeah, so I mean, I think, and obviously I'm just speaking for dance music, but I feel like this could carry over into other genres. You are your own person that's going to push your music to begin with. So I think it's important to have a background and an understanding of the label itself. Like, since there's a lot of people out there that are going to do more harm than good to you, I think, you could sign any contract. Doesn't mean it's going to be a good contract. It's kind of your job as the artist to say, hey, does my brand, do my moral values align with X, Y, and Z, this label? Are they going to give me good promo? Are they going to, look at the other songs they've released. How are those doing? Do they have 5 SoundCloud plays and 5 Spotify plays, but they're number 1 on Beatport? That might be a red flag. So, you know, if you're going for that, then maybe those are your people. But like during the first couple of weeks of quarantine, you know how many songs came out, like, you know, called, you know, Quarantine? You know, do you really want to be on a label that's like has songs on it called like Coronavirus? Like, I don't know. There's cool meme songs, like, don't get me wrong, but like, you know, I think to an extent, you know, the label's brand is just as important, if not more important than your brand, because they need to be selling your music. And if they're not promoting it or selling it, I think you should probably look elsewhere. There's plenty of labels out there. And, you know, it takes time. You'll sign stupid contracts. Everybody does. Like, I've been there. You know, you regret it. And then, you know, a couple of years down the line, you tell Spotify, yep, that wasn't my song. I don't know who that guy is. He just has the same name. And they'll take it off and whatever. You know, it's a learning process. But I think you should find a label that's going to work for you just as hard as you're working for them. You're giving them the product. If they're not selling it, there's other places that'll take that and sell it or promo it. And so the questions are really like, what's the promo I'm going to get? Look at how the other tracks are doing. Like, are the people that are supporting those tracks people that you want to be associated with or getting played by? Or look at it as, can I bring this label up somewhere? Like, you know, is my sound similar enough right now, or is the label dead and I could end up being like the front runner person of the label or something? Like, you know, it's all long-term stuff and you don't have to overthink it, but I think those are definitely important questions you should kind of consider when you're in that ball game, because it's a business. So help yourself while you help them, you know?
Yeah. So you mentioned contracts as well. Is that something you review yourself, or do you like hand that off to someone else? Or?
Well, so, you know, it depends on the label. You know, the first time you get offered your contract, yeah, you'll read it through and then not understand a lot of it. A lot of like, there's a lot of, at least for the kind of stuff I make, there's a lot of like bedroom, like dudes off in foreign countries that have labels and whatever. Some are very good, some are not. Mm-hmm. And I think network with people and find out what's good. But like, you know, you want to look at the contract and be like, well, this says they own the song for 2 years, or like a thing that, you know, the first time that I ever released a song was shocking to me. And I read it in the contract, but, you know, you're so like, wow, I can't wait to sign this contract. It was, we'll give you 25% of all the earnings after you reach a certain amount of money. Oh, wow. And what happened was that label, they didn't promote, they didn't do anything. I think the song got maybe 1 or 2 spins from like random friends of the label. And right. You know, you go to email and say, hey, can I get my royalty statement? And they're like, I don't know, like, sure, we'll send it, but we only send it 1 time a month if the day ends in Y and the sun's half out, you know, or the moon's full. And then you get it and they're like, oh yeah, it turns out you didn't make, they don't even tell you the price. They're like, well, you didn't make enough, you didn't make over, you know, $100, $150 for you to make your 25% on every preceding sale. And you're like, well, can I see the numbers? And they don't respond. So you'll sign shady deals like that. It is, dude. And it's just, there's people out there that'll take advantage of you, but that's why you got to do your research and don't get, you know, like, woo, like when you get your first offer, it's not usually going to be the one, right. But it might be, you know, but you got to do the research and business wise, you just don't want to end up in something like that.
That's super important, man. Yeah. Do your research. Definitely. Cause yeah, I've just like, you know, interests that I've had in the past, you know, I get super excited about it. And then I'm just like, yeah, I'll take the first thing because you're excited about it. And you really have to step back and really see if it matches with what your intentions and, like you said, your morals are and where you want to head with your project.
I think it's like with anything else too, you know, how many emails I get from Skunk Radio saying they want to like play my song, you know, and then they want to play my unfinished songs. I mean, it's like people that call your grandparents and then get them to give their social security number. Like, don't send, you know, if it seems too good to be true, it is. And that's the case with a lot of this stuff too. So just really like, look, you know, you're not gonna, you know, hate to be that guy, but you're probably not gonna make any money or little money. Like royalty statements are laughable across the board on every level. So then why are you releasing on the label? Like, that's, I guess, going back to your question originally, is like, what's better? Well, do you want the exposure, but what is the exposure? Like, do they have direct access to group therapy with Above and Beyond? Do they network with the people on Enhanced, or I'm just saying like labels that I've, heard of or whatever. But yeah, I think like that's important because you're paying them whether you like it or not. So you should make sure you're getting said service out of that.
Yeah.
That's all. I keep probably talking in circles, but I think that's an important point. So
hell yeah, man.
No, I think that's huge. And I think what, COVID, I think the labels are really trying to scramble to come up with a lot of new, unique ways to stay competitive. And that's why I see a lot of artists, especially in the urban community, they're going more independent because the labels are trying to play catch up and trying to think of innovative ways to keep up with the changing times. So that's all we're just asking you. So someone that's coming up, they're a producer, maybe they started 5 days ago, 5 years ago, or 20 years ago. Who knows? I don't know. But let's say they do want to go the label route. What was some of your first steps?
Okay, so I mean, yeah, it's daunting, when you first start out or whatever, you look at it and you're like, well, I'll never be on Armada, or I'll never be on, Sony or any of these. And again, I only kind of do like the dance music side of things. So it's all the same, but like anything else in life, I think that one, just being a good person is going to get you anywhere, or definitely help you. So being a good person and then networking with the people that are in power, and not just networking, not just buddying up with the guy who has the #1 song at the moment. Cause like people see through that, I get messages like that and people want to work with you. And you're like, no, you don't. Like, you just want this out of it, or you just want this. And the longer you do it, you'll realize that. But I think it's important to be able to build networks. Like the way that I got on Elliptical Sun, which is the label I release a lot of my music on now currently. I had been friends with a guy named Rylan for a few years, and he was an A&R. Like, what you should be doing, I guess, follow the A&Rs. Like, don't stalk them, but, get in their lives, get involved with these people. Like, they're going to be more likely to help you if you're helping them. So do you comment on all the labels stuff? Do you are you talking to the A&Rs all the time? Like, you got to be able to set, like, when they see like a Nick Hayes demo or a Nick Hayes promo in their email, like they know who I am at this point, or they should know who you are too. It's important, like, because every Joe Schmo, anybody can send a demo, but like, these labels are getting hundreds and hundreds of demos. And the higher you go, like even the more demos that these guys are getting. So like for them to be able to put a face to a name and be like, oh, like this is so-and-so. Like the coolest thing, I was talking with my buddies, the Mind to One guys, they were trying to get on this label, and I don't want to, say anything, but the person that when they were talking to him, he was like, after things got signed, they were like, and just so you know, we knew who you guys were. Like, this isn't a new thing. It's very rare that a song comes across to an A&R and they're like, wow, like this song's, I'm sure it happens, but like, they're going to help the people that are helping them. Like, who's sharing their post or liking the post, commenting, like giving the engagement, who's it, you got to separate yourself from being like a complete fanatic and fan, which is hard, but you also need to, step back from a business standpoint and be like, how can we both benefit from this relationship that we have? So that's definitely the way to do it. I mean, it's networking, and some people are good at it, some people are bad at it, but it's not friend the person on Facebook and immediately invite them to like your friend, like your DJ page. Like, I'll unfriend you. That's like I can't stand that.
I wanted to move in towards like brand intentions. I know you name a lot of your songs off of what is it? Not train stations, but what is it?
Just like why don't like so my I am probably not the best example of how to make a brand. I mean, considering my DJ name is my name, and it was kind of a joke at first, but I like trains, so I just started naming my songs after like trains or like train companies. So like if you look at like Coaster and like Metrolink, those are both like passenger services in California, which I guess is cool because I used to live there and like, like called it that. But like Sounder and Front Runner, those are like more commuter like railroads. I don't know. It's
cool.
not like I don't know if it's like my brand, or it's not like I'm playing on stage and there's like a train driving behind me or anything. But yeah, before I get the hate, yeah, maybe the next song will be called Thomas or something. But yeah, all those songs are kind of train related. It's like Interchange was a collaboration I did with my other buddy Fezza, and I don't know, it just felt right because it was like coming together, and that's like what an interchange is. And yeah, I got a new song called Signal. Can't really say much about that, but there's signals on trains. So there you go.
So what
That's the big secret.
happens when you run out of different trains? Let's say you max out on those songs. What would you switch to?
I think I would have to get a lot more serious in the studio for that to happen. But there's been a few cases where like when you like remix a track, obviously you can't pick the name of it, or you work with some people that already kind of have an idea what they want to call the song. Or if there's like a catchy hook and like they're saying one word, you can't just not use that word as the name of the song. I mean, that's just dance music. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe move on to planes or something. Planes, trains, automobiles. I don't know, man. Like I have to finish a lot more music before that becomes a problem. I have like a list of like, oh, these would be cool, like, train. I'm trying to avoid like the super like obvious ones, or I'm not trying to be like Marta original mix.
Oh, dude,
like,
I can't wait for I can't wait for the Marta song to come out. It's gonna be.
Yeah, it might be more of like a meme track. I don't know. It's a fun one, but yeah, who knows?
Yeah, in Cleveland, where I'm from, it's called Rita.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Yeah. So it's Marta. It's Marta here in Atlanta, and Cleveland is Rita. What was the main one in Michigan up there?
We didn't really have one. I mean, we had Amtrak, like Amtrak basically. But I mean, that's kind of everywhere to some extent. But we don't have to go into the history of railroads. But yeah, as much as I would love that, I could sit here and talk to you all day about that. So
no worries, man. So I think having your name as your brand is super good because I know a couple of artists. I won't mention their names, but I know a couple of artists.
You would if you say their artist name, but all right.
Sorry. Well, yeah, that's true. Well, I won't. I'll just say that there have been artists that have had their names be something totally random, and when they made that switch over to their actual name, their following increased and their brand exploded after that. So I think it's a really good brand intention, and it's more personal, and people feel like they have a better connection to you.
Yeah, that's kind of always been my thing. I'm just into like plain and simple anything. I mean, like from my wardrobe, which is like gray, white, tan, black, pretty much. I got a couple like red shirts, couple green shirts, but like pretty earthy, But to my logo, which is just super basic. I love my logo, but it's not like like a lot of like DJ logos. So
no, it's simple and to the point.
Music, yeah.
Does the label, not necessarily the one that you're with, but in general, do they have a lot to play with like your brand? Do they really tap into that at all, or do they kind of let you do whatever you want to do?
So, obviously when you sign on like the smaller labels, there's a little more leeway or versus going to a bigger label, as is the case with a lot of things. But as far as like, once I feel like the label I'm on, I've kind of proved myself or like proved my like worthiness to staying with them. So I think it's not that they're doing these things to keep me around, but it's like, it's at this point, if they send an artwork, like for Elliptical's artwork, it's very simple. That's kind of why I liked it to begin with. It's just like, there's a design, but it's like the logo's kind of right there. Mm-hmm. And there's not much you can really change with that, because I like how they all look uniform personally. they let me like choose the colors and like the textures, but when you sign to a new label, you kind of got to like prove yourself worthy enough for them to give you that option. But I think with a lot of dance music tracks, I've noticed, and I was talking to somebody else about this today, that even other genres of music, I mean, you have like the revealed recordings, the spin-in records, the Anjunas of the world, and those all kind of have like their logo like front and center, because it's almost like you're pushing the brand. Like labels, I think in dance music might be a little bit different than in other genres, where it's not like it's a platform, but like you almost have to like fit into that platform, if that makes sense. Like I don't feel like there's as much freedom of, I want to do this with it. Like a lot of the dance labels are like, this is how we do our labels. And I don't care. Like, I don't really care about that. I just like plain and simple. Like, I don't want a bunch of flashy colors and whatever. So that's just,
I like it.
I guess.
That's dope. I don't know if you're ready, Zach, but I want to just kind of ask him one of our famous questions that we ask.
Sure.
All right, cool. So, no, I mean, they're fun questions, easy questions, and we got a few of them that we like to ask our guests to come on the show. This one is, give us a fun fact that your fans don't know about yet.
Oh man, see, usually what I say is all my song names are trains, and people are like, "What?" And then like I Google it, the pictures. But
sorry, I gave that
was used. That was used a little early. Fun fact. Okay, well, I mean, I guess I obviously went to school for film. Well, maybe this is new to you guys, but I know Zach, you actually know that. But I work in film, so I work on a lot of like bigger Hollywood movies. That's like my real job, That takes like the 18 hours a day type thing. But
you're good buddies with Clint Eastwood too.
Yeah, I guess I've worked with Clint, and I don't know, had a nice conversation with Christian Nairn, who's Hodor. We kind of like hit it off because we both kind of do film, which was cool. But
yeah, and Hodor does music too, right?
Yep. He came here to Atlanta. I got to hang out with him for a little while. That was like the coolest night of my life. But I'm not a Game of Thrones fan either. I just was like, it was cool to. It's weird. I deal with actors all day, and like I've worked with people from like The Rock to whoever. But I guess fun fact first, if you pause like Venom around like the 3 to 5 minute mark, I have a little cameo in Venom. I'm usually behind the scenes, but I was like a dead astronaut. So you can find me in a real Hollywood movie in IMAX if you really look for it. But
oh wow, that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, I don't know, it's really random, left field, but
so how did you get that cameo?
It was kind of more of a joke. I was working in the production office at the time, and they had a stunt guy that fit the costume, and they needed me to like stand there, and I was like this, and they like tailored the costume to me. And then the guy called in sick like the day they were shooting, and I came in to like give him like a package or something. This was when I was first starting out, and they were like, everyone was like freaking out, and I was like, whoa, why is everybody all tense today? And they're like, oh, the guy backed out. We don't know who's gonna fit the suit. And I was like, hey, what do you mean, guys? Like,
I fit it
perfectly.
The suit
to me. and they were like, that just might work. And then they approved it, and then next thing I knew, I was getting carted off in Taiwan. Well, not really Taiwan, but Taiwan in Atlanta. And yeah, and then I made the cut. I became friends with Ruben, the director of Venom and Zombieland, and whenever I work on a movie with them, I end up like, it's always like we laugh about like, oh yeah, remember that time you were the dead guy? Like everybody loved it. It was fun. I loved it. It's my closest to fame I'll ever get. But yeah, it's a random fact, I guess.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
It's probably the first time you heard that one. I don't know.
So do you give us permission to put that 3 minute mark link?
Oh yeah. Oh, believe me, I could show you. I don't know exactly where it's at. I'll get you the
just send us a link. We'll put in our description so everyone can see.
It's literally like 2 seconds, but my parents were proud. My mom missed it when we watched it in the movie theater, but my dad saw it. Like a couple frames. Cool. couple
That's dope.
frames.
That's dope.
Awesome, man. So
Thanks.
outside of music, you were talking about like how you kind of start tracks and stuff, but what do you do for like inspiration outside of music? Like what inspires you to write other than other songs and music out there?
I mean, aside from that, I think that just being in a healthy, so I think a lot of like emotional tracks sometimes, like this notion is like, oh, I have to be sad to write emotional music, but I think for me, like, yeah, I've written some songs that probably will never come out or are in the pipeline now or have come out that are kind of based on different life events, or someone breaks up with you or something, and that just happened to be the song I was writing at the time, and that's kind of what I'll always associate with that, like that moment is that song. Which is kind of cool sometimes, maybe you don't realize that's what's influencing you, but I think everything you do really around you is what influences you. I think like right now, some people might say it's kind of hard with being stuck inside, inside all day with quarantine, but I've started this routine of waking up in the morning and not like 9 a.m. in the morning. Like for when I was finishing the last song, I was waking up at like probably 5 or 6 a.m. and you just wake up, and it's the coolest feeling, man. I hate sleeping, I really do, but to wake up that early, like you have like 4 hours where just nobody's going to message you except the people in like London and whatever, like they're already up doing their thing. But your friends that you're going to want to hang out with or play Call of Duty with or whatever, like those people aren't going to be up. So it's kind of like this peaceful time that like, you can do all this stuff at the beginning of the day. And then when noon rolls around, you eat lunch and you're like, oh, I can go play, Call of Duty, or I can go do a bike ride or whatever. And you feel good because you already got what you needed to done. It's not like 4 p.m. when you sit down, you're like, all right, I'm going to make the best track ever, sit down for 20 minutes and your friend's like, hey, come cook dinner, So I think that's important, but also just being like healthy. So work out and stuff.
So
not
you
that I'm
wake
a
up.
staple for that, but
you said you work on tracks early in the morning. Does that mean you don't work late at night on tracks, or is it usually just the morning time?
Well, it kind of goes both ways. Obviously life's going to happen. There's going to be times where you work and you get off at crazy hours, but I think truly like with music, if you want to actually do this, like you'll find the time to do it. My only thing, like the only thing I don't like about that saying, and I guess maybe I'm going to retract a little bit or take some of that back, is like, it's okay to take a break. I think sometimes the most inspiring thing you can do when you're lacking inspiration is just to get up and walk away. I think especially with quarantine, like I found I was really productive at the beginning of quarantine. I finished maybe 2 or 3 tracks. And like, for me, that's a lot. I don't have that many tracks that I ever really finish. And, obviously you get burnt out doing that. But I think it's important to be able to be like, okay, it's okay to step back. Now you got to be real with yourself. If you sit down for 10 minutes and you're like, all right, I'm going to take a quick break and go downstairs and play video games. That's totally different. But, you shouldn't be, you should enjoy this, and I have to send my computer away to get fixed because my screen's been flashing pink and dying. But, I think this time I'm going to have a lot of, time just kind of like reflect, get some new inspiration and just take a step back for a minute and not be like feeling bad about it, So I think that's important.
A balance.
You have to realize like your favorite artists too, like they're not and until they, until you really realize like that they're not always happy with their songs or whatever, like it's trippy. I mean, like when I had a song that came out that did well, and I kind of became friends with like people that I started looking up to, and now I have people that send me songs, and these are people that I've like, maybe not idolized, but these are people that I've, I respect their talent and their productions and everything, and just as people, and they're sending you songs like, hey man, I really don't know about this, like I don't think that this kick is, bass is good or kick is good. I'm like, what do you mean? Like everything you make is good, but like that for me, that was just kind of like a wake up moment to be like, you know what, it's okay to realize that like, and it's hard to until it kind of happens with you, but like everyone, like these artists are people too, you know, like they take breaks. Like you don't see it because their management team or marketing team makes it look like they're on Cancun every day, you know, having the best day of their life. But I mean, we're all people. So, and the sooner you realize they're just people too, you can actually talk to them in the club instead of being like, when you meet them, and then that's just embarrassing and whatever.
Have you ever had any situations like that?
I hate you.
Yeah. It's okay. I have too, man.
Yeah. There's a few artists I really look up to, and one of them. One time I was talking to him after the show, and you know, I already was like, well, I'll just tell the story because I really like the story, but you can cut it if you want. This person who I won't say, like, I was like, you know, really excited to go to a show and I sent him like my demo before, you know, and it like said seen on Instagram. I was kind of like, oh, all right, bummer. You know, okay, whatever. And I didn't think anything of it. And, you know, this person had played some of my music in the past. So I was excited to see him at this show, because it was going to be the first time I introduced myself and been like, hey, I'm Nick Hayes. Thanks for playing my music, you know? And this person, when I went to introduce them, their person was like, hey, this is Nick. And said person was like, Nick Hayes. And I was like, yeah. And like, that was like the weirdest thing, but I was already like, yeah. And then like, kind of right after that, they were like, hey, I'm starting a label and would be cool to like get some stuff from you on there sometime. And that was just like, I was like gone. So that was kind of awkward, but yeah, I try to be like normal with people, you know, try to realize they're just people too. I don't know, people get like freaked out about actors all the time, but like, I guess I'm just around them all the time.
Yeah.
So it doesn't do it, but you gotta, if you're really going to be like a, you know, industry pro, you know, those are your colleagues. And I don't walk up to my boss every day at work and I'm like, you know,
can I have your autograph?
Yeah, unless they were, you know, famous or something. But yeah, no, you just got to play it cool, and you'll get a lot further, and you probably won't get kicked out of like the VIP area too. So
yeah, don't want to get kicked out of that VIP
club
area,
tips,
man.
I don't know. Club 101.
Awesome, man. We kind of talked about this a little bit, just like with Logic X Pro, right? Coming out, but with the DAW that you have right now, the DAW that you have right now, what are some plugins that you like that are stock plugins, like some of your favorites, and then what are some third-party plugins that you really like?
I mean, I think for me, I use a lot of like the utility plugins the most in Logic, just because like at this point I kind of use like the FabFilter stuff and like the Sound Toys stuff. I think I'm not going to say it's better. I've just gotten used to using that. But I think the most, you know, up until my last few projects, I've always used the single band EQ, just because I don't know, maybe where it's at. I always use that. And on samples, I'll usually use just the stock EQ in Logic. It's not bad.
Yeah.
It just seems to be the one that I always pull up because I can just double click like the little top thing. DC probably knows what I'm talking about, but instead of having to like go through and find whatever. Yeah, I mean, you know, most of the stuff that Logic has stock is good. I just, you know, I didn't take the time to learn it. Doesn't mean that it's bad. Like the grand piano, I think is like one of the stock just like instrument sounds you can use. That's pretty good. Like, I mean, if you get the right process, maybe don't use their compressor. You can use the compressor. It's a good compressor, but don't use the exact like whatever channel strip settings that they give you. You know, make them to whatever you want. But I use the strings and the pianos a lot. But I mean, I have some other plugins that I use for that nowadays. But
I gotta be honest with you, man. I love Logic's just instruments in general. Like, they're so clean, and I wish Ableton could like. They have some good like starter packs for sure, but like specifically with like organic instruments, with like pianos, like strings, all that. Like, They have some amazing plugins. It sounds so
Well,
good.
I think Apple also has maybe a lot more money than and things like FL and
Yeah.
Ableton. I mean, there's a lot of things that I'd like to have tried on FL and Ableton. I think the new sampler is going to be like probably one of my most used things whenever I download it. I use the ESX or whatever 24 sampler
24.
currently. Yeah, loses files all the time, but
it's clunky.
Yeah.
It's a little tired. They've updated that. The updated version is way better. I think people are going to get a lot better use out of it. Your workflow will be faster. It's just easier. Complete overhaul. What about VSTs? Any go-tos?
Yeah, so well, I guess like, I mean, if you're talking like synths and or like anything, is
like
anything
Sims,
up for grab, or you want to know? Okay, so I guess like the synths, I don't know, the ones that I end up using pretty much in most of my projects, they're usually Diva. It's like super analog-y, but it's like the good analog. It's not like the older analog stuff. I would definitely recommend checking those out. It's kind of confusing to use at first, but a lot of my like, you know, sounds that people know have kind of come from that pack. I use a lot of Spire, Silent. I don't like try too many new things. The Arturia stuff is really nice. But like for me, like the Korg, you know, I have some of that, like the VST versions, not like hard synths or whatever, but you know, I think that like to me, I can't get anything that doesn't sound like a car alarm, you know.
Right,
I don't know.
right.
Sometimes I get lucky and like the preset that I'm looking for is just kind of there with the Corey stuff and like the Arturia stuff. And sometimes they play like nice weird sounds, but I think it's important to know how to automate those sounds. And I just haven't really put in that much time to learn those things because I'm usually in Diva or Silent or Spire. And then those kind of have become nice with the sound I do. So yeah, I'm not usually like the guy who's first in line every time they announce a new synth by any means. I'm pretty like laid back and chill, and I don't update things as much as I probably should when it comes to synthesizers and stuff. But if we're talking plugins, then I would say Sound Toys. That whole bundle is really nice. And like the FabFilter stuff, I've started using the Simplon a lot more for filtering. I just think it sounds better, but that's just a personal
yeah,
thing.
those are two really popular manufacturers. They've been making plugins for years. Real clean sound. Their stuff is really good.
They're really nice. Really nice.
So you use synths, but you also said you use samples. Where do you get your samples from?
You know, to be honest, I've had them on my computer for so long, I couldn't tell you like specifically, but every now and then I'll find like an acapella just randomly somewhere in a file, in like a folder somewhere. But I think I just like, you know, my friends and I, we like, you know, if we hear something that sounds like, you know, one of our styles, we usually send it to each other. But I at one point I was using Splice. I'd say my sample library is probably due for somewhat of an upgrade. So maybe Splice, but I think that the Sennheiser sample packs, I really like those. They have some really nice progressive ones anyways. And
cool.
Jerome Ismay, who's like a trance progressive guy.
Dude, I went to his show.
He has a really good sound. I would really like to be at that show, but that'd been cool. Where was that?
I think it was in North Carolina. I went with a couple of friends. We like rented an Airbnb. This was before I met you, but it was super chill. It was like
thanks for the invite.
Yeah, I know. So I'll go back in time, meet you real quick, and bring you to the show. But yeah, dude, it was super chill. It was like this small underground bar almost, but like, you know,
those are the best places to see that kind of stuff. But my opinion,
yeah, it was chill. Not a lot of people there, and just vibing out to like those progressive leads, and just it just felt like one song the whole time. Like obviously melodies changed, but like it was super smooth.
So I will say, just kind of going to samples for a second.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's easy to keep downloading sample packs and keep looking on Splice. Like, if you're just looking to look, I mean, you're just going to keep adding these things to your library. I mean, if you watch like some of these better producers, I mean, especially in the quarantine now, a lot of people are doing like live streams of them producing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they only have like 5 or 6 kicks, and it's all also like a workflow thing. But
Yeah.
you know, if you have a kick that works and it transposes to a lot of keys that you want, like, I mean, just use the kick. Like, no one's really gonna call you. Like, people are gonna call you if you always use the same sounds, you know. But like, if you're using the same kick, like, I don't know, maybe the elite producers, but like, you know, find something that works. Like, good samples are hard to come by, like hard to find. So like, when you find them, keep them in a separate folder. And you know, I think that you can build your own sample pack, you know, as you keep producing for years and years. So
Yeah.
like, I have a folder of like, this is, if I lost everything, I wouldn't want to lose this folder. And then everything else, the other 65 gigs of just random stuff that I'll probably never even open, but I downloaded it because it was free, you know. I don't know. That's where you find like random vocals that end up in tracks years down the line. But you know, I most of my stuff comes from, you know, 5 or 6 sample packs or things that I've gotten or found and friends have given me from their tracks in the past, etc.
So if you have, one thing that kind of gets me going and it like inspires me are new sounds. And it sounds like,
for sure,
it sounds like you are really comfortable with the sounds that you have and you're able to like reuse them. Maybe, I don't know, but like, how does that help with like keeping from getting like writer's block or something like that?
Yeah, so I guess kind of going off that, I mean, I what kind of stuff do you produce specifically? I think he said hip hop, like more hip hop, or did I make that up?
Yeah, no, I'm more like hip hop, R&B, you know, that kind of stuff.
So maybe, you know, correct me if I'm completely like wrong, but I think a lot of that is like more percussion driven, right? Or you know, I think there's definitely like to an extent. Maybe I'm over like stepping here to say that, but I mean, I guess that was just the question. Is like, do you start with like percussion more, or do you start with like your?
I actually so it was funny because we had another producer on here. Can't remember who it was, but I think he started with the drums. Was it Silk Road? I don't know. I don't want to do anything away. Yeah. So he makes hip hop beats. He makes like rap beats, and he starts with the drums. And we were kind of going back and forth. I start with melody. Like I like to hear, you know, a certain sound might trigger a certain feeling or idea.
I guess that's kind of, you know, my thing was gonna be like, well, you know, I think people just get different what's the word, inspiration from doing different things. Like, there's definitely been times where I find a sample or a vocal shot or something, I'm like, okay, this is going to be the core of the song. But I think for me, a lot of the time it starts with the melody and like the percussion stuff. That always comes kind of more after the fact, because with dance music, it's just, you know, I mean, people are going to like probably berate me for saying this, but like for me, it's more about the melody and the percussion for me kind of finds itself in there after the fact. Like, people say I don't compress my hats enough, or whenever I send it to friends, they're always like, these hats are horrible. So I'm not one to like really pick good samples, but I think what resonates with people more is the melody for like my stuff personally. So I just always kind of focus more on that. But definitely, like, if you're on like a Splice or Beatport sound, I don't even think that exists anymore, but whatever, and you find like a loop, like that could totally become like a song. You know, I know there's like a Deza track, and Zach, I think, well, you've listened to Deza before, but he has one track on 03 that's like the piano is from like a library loop, you know, and that's like the basis of his whole song. And it's pretty crazy. Like, I saw that loop, you know, months ago, you know, and I was like, oh wait, that's where he got it. So it's kind of cool when that happens. But yeah, you never know what's going to give you inspiration. I'd say be open to everything. But for me, what I don't find inspiring is sitting in front of my computer going down like for like hours. Like, I just can't, that blows my ears out, first of all, and second, I just can't do it. So
Right.
you never know. Just be open to it.
Mm.
That's good. It's always good to hear how different artists, get to the same end goal, and that's a hot track that you can share to the world. So that's dope.
What's one thing that's going on in the music industry right now, or before COVID, that you would like to change as a whole? Either A, you change individually, or something you'd just like to see change?
I would like to get more Spotify plays. No, I'm kidding. That would be nice, so don't get me wrong. If we could just redirect the music industry to my Spotify page real quick, that would be ideal.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I think a lot of people will be like, ghost producing is horrible, like whatever. I mean, everybody's got to make their money somehow. So it's a business. And if that's how you want to do it, if you're so-and-so and your brand is your face, and then you have Dash Berlin, for example, a famous, I was kind of shocked when I found out that it was a group. Dash Berlin is like a group of people, but we only see the guy who's on stage jumping, not the two other guys who produced the music.
Yeah.
I didn't know that until they broke up and went their separate ways. But I think, I don't really necessarily have an issue with the ghost producing. It's frustrating as an up and coming artist to kind of get overshadowed by those people that really might, they don't necessarily deserve to be there.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think what would be cool is trying to having DJ'd myself. I think it'd be cool if promoters maybe book more up and coming artists, and that's to no means a stab at the promoters here in Atlanta or anywhere. But I think, you also have to realize maybe you're not getting gigs because you're not networking with them or stuff like that. But I think to have more opportunities for stuff like that. I mean, when a lot of people start out, they're like, well, I don't get gigs because, they don't play my style of music. That's not true.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people that network and they get really far, and they're very talented as well. So, and even with labels, you're like, well, I don't have 10,000 Instagram followers, so this label's not even going to consider me. At the end of the day, it's a business, so you have to understand that. But it might not only be the reason that you have, you don't have 10,000 fans being the only reason that you're not getting signed to that label. So sometimes you have to, that's kind of my catch-22 on that statement. But, I think it would be cool. I think Imagine does good here in Atlanta.
Oh, yeah.
From what I've heard, booking booking local acts, just giving some folks a chance, and that'd be cool. Just because I'm, trying to DJ, a little bit with the producing as well. So I guess that's what I would like to see. But and then if it was monetarily based, I'd say maybe a little bit more out of for the artists that are actually making the product to see something more. I know next year, I think Live Nation, I was reading an article, they're putting the burden of canceled shows on the artists themselves to kind of protect themselves from losing the money. And obviously they took a hit, but it's kind of frustrating when, and it's hard as a fan too, because you always want to see your favorite DJ or whatever always producing and always doing things live for you in front of you. But this is time, a lot of people are I want to see so-and-so on a live stream. Where is he? But it's you got to realize that these guys need time to do other things with their lives. So kind of maybe give people some space while this whole pandemic thing is happening, because now all us DJ producers are expected to do a live stream every week from our house for free. And not that I do it for the money, but it's more the principle behind it of our job isn't to entertain you every week, give us some time to make new music and whatnot. So it's kind of why I disappeared from the whole live stream game for a little bit anyways.
Yeah.
Finish up some projects while I have the time.
So you feel like fans are almost expecting too much since they can't get those
I think we just
now?
I think in general, we just live in a world where everybody expects everything really quick, whether it's getting signed to a label or having your favorite DJ play for you on YouTube or Twitch for free.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, just pump the brakes a little bit, and things take time. Like, look, I mean, I'm one of those people that would love to see, the next person play, but yeah, kind of seeing both sides of it. You're kind of like, all right, we should give them some space. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe fix the mental health issues that go on with a lot of DJs. I think that's important. And I think one of these things is like being expected to stream all the time now. I don't think that's helping the situation, or, but that's just me. So
one of the other fun questions we like to ask, to just kind of pivot a little bit, is if you can collab with any artist or producer, who would that be?
Well, so I really like this guy called Grum. So that'd be awesome to do some stuff with him, or Jerome Isma-Ae, or there's a guy called Alistair. He works a lot with Jerome Isma-Ae, or a guy called Pete K. I think they're all very talented producers. So it'd be really cool to do something with them. I think they're watching. Hit me up,
Oh yeah.
And I'm pretty sure it'll happen eventually, man. You're doing a really good job, and you're out here. You're making major moves, and you got, you're in movies. It'll happen.
Yeah. Now I'm the actor DJ. It's game over. I get in. All my fans. No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem.
So can you go into a little bit about your latest release, and we'll actually play that at the end of the episode, but Front Runner. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so obviously it's a collaboration between me and my Canadian label mates, Mind of One. Yeah, so working with the Mind of One guys, and for a while we've been kind of like, yo, we should make a track together. We should make a track. And I think a lot of stuff for me and like my music stuff was kind of happening right at the beginning of quarantine, and there were some things that were supposed to happen that got canceled because of the quarantine, and some bigger things like collaborations I was looking forward to that maybe didn't necessarily work out as I wanted to. And so I was kind of like a little bit burnt, you work all this stuff and sometimes things don't work out, and that's just what it is. But I was like, yeah, man, like I'm down, like I'm just do a track. I had this break melody for probably like half a year at least that has just been sitting. I mean, I like really like breaks and writing like those kind of melodies. So I had that sitting on my computer for a while anyways. And I mean, I knew it was good. I just didn't really know the drop really. And, the label kind of wanted like a follow-up to Metrolink, and they have a similar sound to me as well. So we kind of worked together, and through many revisions, I think the break really actually stayed the same, but they ended up doing like the bass. They wrote the bass line, and I did like the melody on top of that. And it really, honestly, it worked so fluid. It's probably one of my favorite collaboration tracks I've done with people. And I still talk to these guys like every day. So yeah, nothing. I mean, I think they're going to do great things. They have a song like every month that comes out. Like,
oh wow,
they're just machines. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I think if you want to talk to somebody about productivity, those are your guys. I mean, two brothers, so I guess you get like a Mind of One. But
there we go.
Think,
that's right.
Yeah, just kind of came together really nicely, and we didn't really send it to any other label other than Elliptical, because we kind of knew that was where our thing was. And I think today it's like sitting at like number 2 on the label's best selling. So
hell yeah, man.
I can live with that. Thank you.
Was that all done like virtually, or were you guys actually together?
Yeah. Well, so a lot of times when you work with people, and I'm sure you guys are familiar, but maybe for the people that are listening, when you work with other DJs, like I'm doing songs right now with people in other countries and other parts of the world and other states, it's hard, and my guy in Finland is waking up and I'm going to sleep, and vice versa. So you usually just send the project file back and forth. And sometimes you get like an hour or two in between to talk. But with the Mind of One guys, we were on the same like time zone. So it's very much like I would just turn on FaceTime, or they would turn on FaceTime, and we would just like like shoot back and forth ideas, and it was just so fluid. And the song honestly came together in less than a week, and that's the fastest I've ever finished a track. So I say finished, but then we went back and forth with the label with like, little changes here and there, but that's normal. So I think the whole process really, we started it at the beginning of quarantine, and I think that first week we finished the track up, and then kind of went back and forth for maybe a month. And by that time they were like, okay, since we've been on the label, they were like, when do you guys want to release it? And we were just kind of like, well, I know they have a song coming out in this month and this month, but let's shoot for the middle. And that's why it came out when it did. So yeah, the whole thing just really went very smoothly, and it doesn't always happen that way. So it was very cool for it to happen like that.
So do they also work in Logic as well?
No, so they're in Ableton. So I basically had to bounce all my stems, or if we ever needed a change on the leads, or whatever. So sometimes like I was like, oh, what if we did the bass line like boop 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 boop, or whatever, and they'd be like, yeah, but then like they send it back and it's like boo 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 boo, and you're like, no. And then so like you just bounce down like a really rough idea and send it, or they're like, what if you did this with the leads? And then they would send something back to me and be like, oh, that's what he meant, without the delay or whatever. So yeah, honestly though, the whole project is on their computer. I mean, there's like the mixed version or whatever is all on their computer, but it was all very smooth. And I kind of made it a point to be on the call, not to like micromanage, but I don't like when you end up working with other people and it feels like maybe one person's doing more of the work. Like that's not really how I like to work as a person in general. So it was very cool to have them on the phone, like just to my left or just to my right. And we were able to talk things through, as opposed to like, all right, like here, I did this much, I'll send an email, wait 24 hours for somebody to respond, and then download the whole project again, and then like whatever. So
it's almost like they were just in the other room with you, so you could.
Yeah, no, really, it was super smooth like butter. It's great.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, what you guys at? That's dope. Well, what's the time difference like over there though? Like how
there's same time zone. They're like up there. They're in Montreal, so that worked out perfectly. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, definitely I have a few that it's like I'm always like, here, I just sent you the idea. It's like, great, I'll check it in the morning when I wake up, and then I'm sleeping, but 4 a.m. I'll get like a text like, sounds good, like let's do the next part or whatever, and you're kind of like, oh. But it's
right.
It's the struggle, but it's cool. I mean, I like people in Europe. European people are cool, so I like working with them.
Have you ever been to Europe?
No, I would love to go.
Yeah. So where would you go?
I mean, obviously I think I would kind of like do like the whole Amsterdam thing, but
nice.
I would love to go to like some of the headquarters for some of the bigger labels in like London, just to see them, maybe do some networking out there, visit some friends. Yeah. Like, I don't know if I'll ever make it over there. Like, it'd be really cool to, tour eventually, but we'll see what happens with the whole pandemic and world environment. So
yeah.
Surely we can end on a happier note than that.
Oh yeah, we can. Let's see. So, kind of to wrap it up a little bit, what is one big piece of advice you'd give to a producer, artist, anyone who wants to get into the music industry? What's a big piece of advice that you have learned over the years that could help someone else out?
Well, I mean, I know I kind of touched on the writing one, and I kind of touched on the structure one. So I think, it as cliche as it is, like, you can't compare yourself to other people. Like, I do it all the time, but it's really just not good for you. And I mean, to just, you're never going to be as good as the person that's been doing it for 30 years and it's their full-time career. I mean, realistically, eventually you will, but the main thing to take away from that is everything's going to take time. So you just have to be patient. Like, if you would have told me this time last year that I would be working with the people and have songs coming out on some of the labels that I will in the future, last year, I mean, I wouldn't have believed you. And, so yeah, well,
No, That's good. That's good advice. I love when people come on this show and that's their advice, because for one, it shows consistency of how real that advice is, since multiple people have given it.
100%. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, and two, people need to hear that, because when you hear, let's be honest, when you hear music on a mainstream level, it has gone through so many different steps to get to your ears.
Yep.
And so many different people.
Exactly. So when they're listening to their music that they're working on and it's still in their bedroom phase or wherever it is, and they're trying to compare it, you're setting yourself up for failure that way.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I always push myself into being more upset with the situation. But, you know, you got to enjoy the small victories. Like, you know, when I got my first like actual rejection letter from a label that I was really shooting for, that wasn't just like a, hey, you know, track's not for us. But it was actually from the A&R of the label that was like, hey, we see you, we hear you, this is good, it's just not for us. Or, you know, just to have that like personal connection now with some of these A&Rs. And I think that's, you know, it's a step, but like to be able to like step back and remember those moments where you were when like I was driving home from work and I got supported by Above and Beyond, you know, it's like, you know, you're always going to kind of remember that stuff like that. And I think that's what makes this cool. And like to know that there's going to be like highs and lows in this field. I mean, it's hard to deal with. Like, I mean, I'm having a great week. Last week, not so great of a week. It's just kind of how it is sometimes. Like you'll write 5 ideas and they'll all be good. Some weeks you'll write 10 and they're all bad. So you just gotta, you know, everybody has that. So
great advice, man. I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Before we end it though, can you give us your social media where people can find you, and SoundCloud links we'll put down below as well. But where can people find you on Instagram, Facebook?
Yeah. Well, first off, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man.
I think all my social medias are just Nick Hayes official across the board. If you are one of those people that still has a Twitter. I think my Twitter handle is It's Nick Hayes, but you won't see me much there other than like retweeting things that I have to retweet from the label. So
all right,
check me out on Facebook, Instagram, all the other fun things.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
And what's the name of the song? Your newest release.
Oh, the newest song that's out right now is Mind of One and Nick Hayes, called Front Runner, out now on Elliptical Sun Melodies.
Awesome, man. And we're going to play that right now. Again, thank you so much for coming on. It has been an absolute pleasure, dude.
Yeah, dude, this was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me. It was nice finally getting to meet you, actually, DC. And
oh man, yeah, likewise.
It's awesome talking to you guys. We should all, you know, meet up sometime.
Hell yeah, dude. Right? Get some Mexican food.
Hey, let's do it. I'm down. I'm down.
I'm always game.
Awesome. Have a good one, dude.
Take it easy, guys.
Bye.
Bye.